Hello and welcome back to CBR MTG. My name is Jake Sims and I'm joined with Angus McKay.
G'day guys.
And today we're going to be looking at some modern action. This is Kevin Cox on Grixis Death Shadow and Jim Wilks also on Grixis Death Shadow. Looking at the deck lists, there are quite a few variants in differences in card choices in this matchup. Jim is opted to go on the more controlling route, while Kevin is on your pretty standard what you'd expect to see at any major event. Yeah, just some of the smaller deck list changes would be like Jim is running one Dismember while Kevin's got none. He's playing a single opt. But the one that stands out to me is Jim is playing 4 of the Stubborn Denial's main. Usually you see your Grixis Death Shadow list playing 2 main, 2 side. But yeah, once again, just going for the more controlling route. Yeah, and
It definitely screams because these two are very well-established players in their own right, and they're both actually part of Team EXP, which is why we're showcasing their playmat for you all to see. Jim being a GP winner from a little while ago, and Kev being on the same team, so they all form a part of a team in Canberra, and it seems to me that they're just they're taking two different lists to see which one is better, or just sort of testing a couple of theories, and then they'll both probably take this information back to their teams and use that for building sort of a more refined Death Shadow list, which is funny because they're both such excellent players. This is the semi-finals of our modern tournament at the Games Capital. So we see Jim leading off with the Thoughtseize, seeing a bunch of cards in Kevin's hand, and then we're going to see Kevin on the other side playing a Thoughtseize of his own from what it looks like. So it's very interesting, the differences in the list. We see we'll see Jim playing a 17 lands, which is slightly different, and there's a different number of Street Wraiths and a different number of Terminates. As Dismember, as mentioned before, K-Command, Opt, Stubborn Denial, all these cards are just slightly different. So we'll see sort of what configuration of cards pulls through, because Death Shadow, it has a very well-established shell. I mean, you're always running 4 Death Shadows. Usually run 2 Taskers, 2 Gomag Anglers. Usually running the full play set of Street Wraiths and the 4 Snapcaster Mages and stuff like that. The 4 Serum Visions. So, but then there is a little room for a wiggling. So we'll see what differences they make. We see Jim's hand being the Thoughtseize, Street Wraith, Snapcaster Mage, Death Shadow, and a Gomag Angler. Quite a decent hand for what is essentially a one-lander. Well, what is exactly a one-lander. Street Wraith helping him cycle to get his hand down, getting his life total down enough so he can cast that Death Shadow. Coming into what, for anyone doesn't know, what Grixis Death Shadow essentially does is trying to get itself to 12 life, and then possibly going a little bit more, using your life as quite the resource to get extra card advantage, and then using the Death Shadow as a payoff card, which is a 1 mana 13/13, but it gets minus X, where X is your life total. So if you cast it and you're at 20 life, it's a -7/-7, and it'll die immediately.
not so good.
Yeah, but if you play it when you've got 12 life, then it's a 1/1. So you're trying to get your life down like pretty quickly using fetches and shocks. Like, Modern is definitely the format where it thrives. If you'll care to go back through our previous videos, we see our own Jake Sims trying to test the legacy version of this deck, seeing sort of how it compares, but you're still playing shocks in those decks, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Just the shocks are just way too important to get your life total nice and low to make Death Shadow a relevant threat. But yeah, Kevin took the Snapcaster Mage off that Thoughtseize, which I think is fine because he has the Terminate in hand, he has a Fatal Push, so he's got enough removal to deal with Death Shadow, and the Gomag Angler. Snapcaster just being the a recursive threat non-recursive threat.
Well, you get to buy back one of your. I mean, if you're in a pinch, you can buy back the Serum Visions.
That's it.
But I think Kevin's trying to stop Jim being able to get Fatal Push, Terminate. Like he wants to stop Jim actually getting another buyback on one of his spells.
That's it.
So probably quite a reasonable decision. Also, if you take any instant or sorcery, like you're just sort of filling his graveyard, you need to be sort of very careful, like especially in the Death Shadow Mirror, because every card that you take with Thoughtseize or Inquisition of Kozilek is powering your opponent's graveyard. And we did see the Gomag Angler in Jim's hand, which he's ready to cast, if I'm not mistaken. He's got 5 cards in his graveyard. If he wants to, he can just go straight into that Gomag on what is turn 3, I believe. So really powering out the delve threats on this part.
I think Jim has seen that terminate off his turn 1 Thoughtseize. He decided to take Kevin's Tasigur, just stripping him of a threat. Now, Kevin does have a Stubborn Denial if he wants to act. Yep, which he does.
Seems he does, yeah.
Yep.
Stubborn Denial being a 1-mana instant from Khans.
Khans of Tarkir.
Yeah, Khans of Tarkir, and it using the Ferocious ability to kind of get it a little bit of extra value. So it's a counter spell that only counters unless you pay 1, but if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it just counters the spell hard. So works very well with all of the creatures in both of their decks because, Tasigur, Gomag, and usually Death Shadow will be above 4 power. So Stubborn Denial being perfect for this slot.
Yeah, Grixis Death Shadow has just like proven itself time and time again of just being an amazing 2-for-1 engine. It's just the best 1-drops, 2-drops that are allowed in Modern.
Yep, best in the format.
Absolutely.
And Jim's still holding his own. I mean, Kevin's got a Death Shadow on the board, but Jim hasn't. I mean, he's just made a land drop finally, but he's been able to cast many spells. He's able to cast his Angler whenever he deems fit. I think he's going to just clear the path now with this Thoughtseize, trying to take that Terminate as mentioned before. We see a Thought Scour and a Fatal Push and a Terminate, as well as another card in his hand.
Snapcaster Mage.
Snapcaster Mage, yeah, great. So, I mean, Snapcaster Mage is still not really doing anything at this very point in time, but if he takes the push, Push is an interesting card in the mirror matchup. I'm not sure if they will decide to take him out because, it kills Snapcaster Mage and it kills the Dash Shadow, but the other 4 cards, the Tasigur and the Gomag Angler, it has no effect on.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It seems that Jim's just deciding to slam down this Gomag Angler. Right now, the Dash Shadow is a 1/1, so it's not going to be blocking this Gomag Angler for a while. So Jim can decide to either leave it up and give himself a little bit more time to build his board, or he can just start getting a bit more aggressive and see what Kevin does. I think definitely time is of the essence with these types of decks because they both go pretty fast. Like it's a control deck, but it turns the corner super quickly. We'll see. It seems that this is we've seen that the Gomag Angler is stuck thanks to the 3 Thoughtseizes that have come from Jim's side. Also powering his own engine, losing 2 life, being able to cast his own Dash Shadow when he finally gets the time. We see the one of Opt in Jim's hand. This is possibly something that they're testing, trying to find out whether or not it's good. In theory, it's great, right? Because
absolutely.
When you have
well, you've got 12 fetch lands in this deck. Serum Vision's kind of being scrying 2 with this many fetch lands isn't that great, but yeah, the Singleton Op seems fine to me. The one thing I'm noticing about Kevin is he drew another Thought Scour for turn, which I would have been more inclined to play. Jim knows the contents of Kevin's hand. He knows he's not playing around a Stubborn Denial or anything like that. So if Kevin was to draw a land from this Thought Scour, then he kind of missed the chance to play it.
Yeah. He's decided to play it now, where he reveals there's a Thoughtseize and a Stubborn Denial of his own, and now he's playing a Gomag Angler. So we're seeing them pretty much go toe-to-toe for the main part, but Kevin notably on all 3 colors of mana. leaving him open for a Team of Battle Rage, a Lightning Bolt, and the Colligan's Command that he has in his deck. Not quite Colligan's Command yet, but still closer than Jim is. So I think at this very point, knowing exactly what's on board, Kevin is just possibly at an advantage with the Thought Scours that he has in his hand, and I think he's got another Snapcaster as well.
Yep.
So he could just be able to generate a little bit more card advantage than Jim at this point. We're seeing Jim scry the opt to the bottom end of turn. Notably good about the opt is that you can leave open Fatal Push, you can leave open Lightning Bolt, but still cast the opt at end of turn, as opposed to Serum Visions where you have to make your decision.
An Inquisition out of Jim. What are we looking at? We're looking at 2 Snapcaster Mages, a Thought Scour, and Fatal Push.
Yep. Pretty decent cards.
Yep.
I think the Snapcaster Mage still not quite doing as much as he'd like it to do.
Yeah.
I think Jim's possibly going to gear up to play his own Dash Shadow very soon. Just trying to clear the way with his getting rid of that Fatal Push. Definitely taking advantage of the fact that Kevin is not on 3 mana yet, so he won't be able to cast his Snapcaster Mage. So if he wants to cast that Dash Shadow, he'd best do it now, which he's quite possibly doing, because something that's a bit funny about these Dash Shadow decks is that they'll fetch, shock, and not use the mana that they've recently acquired, just to get their life total down low enough to turn that Dash Shadow online.
It is all about finding the sweet balance between putting yourself at risk and like getting your Death Shadow to a very reasonable size.
Absolutely.
And that Singleton Dismember from Jim, taking out his Kevin's Gurmag Angler, which allows him to swing in for 5 and follow up with another Death Shadow. So
very good play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now his Dash Shadow is a 10/10. I mean, the fact that he's on 3 life is not really relevant at this point, because like, if Kev gets lucky enough to play his Singleton Team of Battle Rage, like he might. I think we're seeing the thing that will be his demise, opting to perhaps cycle his Street Wraith to take the honorable death. So very good. So Jim taking out that first game, really seeing the power of Dash Shadow, just turning that corner immediately. Like we had Dash Shadow that was a 10/10 and a Gurmag Angler was a 5/5, and Kevin just not being able to sort of dig his way out of that hole before the next hit.
Let's go to the sideboards now, eh?
Absolutely.
So we'll start with Kevin. Kevin is running 3 Surgicals, 2 Liliana of the Veils, 2 Kozilek's Returns, 2 Collective Brutality, 2 Stubborn Denial, 2 Ceremonious Rejections, Is It Staticaster, and another Team of Battle Rage. Obviously, the Surgicals come in just because you want to attack your opponent's graveyards. Maybe
turn off their delve threats.
Yep. Maybe the Stubborn Denials come in as a way to answer your opponent's removal on your big idiots. Could make a case for another Team of Battle Rage, just it can double as a removal spell and get through some damage.
Combat Trick's pretty good. I think in this, if they're going to try to, if they might just be trying to control each other out of the game until they can just turn the corner with 1 or 2 threats. So having the Team of Battle Rage could just absolutely blow Jim out of the water without him even realizing.
Like Liliana of the Veil can also come in just as this game can either just be over in 2 seconds or it can just turn into a grind fest where she just incremental value, and Grixis Death Shadow being so threat light, it can answer like their only threat on board, which could be a fat Death Shadow, a Gurmag Angler, anything like that.
The abilities being uncounterable as well, which is notable.
Is huge.
Yeah.
Jim, on the other hand, his sideboard is 1 Engineered Explosives, 3 Surgical Extractions, 2 Young Pyromancer, 1 Is It
Staticaster.
Yep. 2 Ceremonious Rejections, Colligan's Command, Singleton Team of Battle Rage, 2 Liliana of the Veil, and 2 Collective Brutality.
Slightly different sideboards as well. So I see in a couple of newer lists, the Young Pyromancer coming in, like kind of just realizing that grindy matchup value where you can just accidentally go wide. Could be a reasonable bring-in for Jim as well, considering, I mean, Kev might bring in the Liliana of the Veil, which, as we mentioned before, was a very good bring-in. But he's definitely not bringing in his Kozilek's Return. So this could mean that Jim can go wide, protect himself from Liliana's down tick ability, making him sacrifice a creature just by sacrificing a token. But we see on Jim's side is kind of moving cards in and out of the sideboard, from the main board and the sideboard, where he has the Colligan's Command, one of in the main and one of in the side, as opposed to Kevin, who's just got the 2 in the main. I have a feeling that they're possibly sort of testing for metas as well. I mean, Colligan's Command notably very good against Affinity and sort of Lantern Control, I suppose, as well. But also just a very good spell in its own right, because at the very least you're getting a Death Shadow back to your hand and you're making your opponent discard a card.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but other than that, the 3 surgicals are definitely coming in for Jim as well, for the same reason that it is for Kevin, just attacking their opponent's graveyard. And you can see one in his hand there.
We saw, I think I saw Kevin take out one of his lands. Now we know that Jim's playing, siding out one of his lands. Now this is the start of the game. Is this why this is happening? Okay, never mind. So I was curious because Jim plays one less land than Kevin does, so it's possibly a reasonable thing to decide. But we're starting with our opening hands here. Kevin going straight to 17 and passing the turn. Possibly, I mean, setting himself up for a fatal push. Very, very unlikely that a fatal push would be relevant at this point in time, but maybe just getting his life total down while he can.
Also bluffing a Stubborn Denial in, like, if
absolutely.
Jim decides to try and pull the trigger on a Thoughtseize or an Inquisition early. That seems more than fine.
Yeah. No, I can 100% agree with that. Like, just leaving up mana for Stubborn Denial and getting your life total down. Like, Jim's less inclined to cast a Thoughtseize right now. He's just going for the opt at end of turn. Kind of seeing the power of opt right now, where he doesn't really have to do anything in his turn. He can wait till the end of Kev's turn to try and get a little bit of card advantage, or card filtering, as it were. But we're seeing the start of Jim's turn, where we might be seeing a Thoughtseize coming down with just dropping the Scalding Tarn, having a little think. And passing back to Kevin from what it looks like. Kevin probably fetching, shocking, and then not much else. It's very, very different play style to every other deck in Modern, where you're okay with fetching and shocking just for fun. And we'll see what comes out of it. But the engineered explosives seem super interesting on Jim's side, notably missing from Kevin's sideboard.
Not one of the cards that comes in this matchup, but against like your go low to the ground affinity decks or like green-white company combo decks, seems very decent.
Tokens as well would be very good.
Yeah. We've been seeing a little bit of token action around in our local meta at Canberra.
Yeah. The very, very strong deck, the black-white tokens, just being using Bitter Blossom like the best that any other deck could possibly use, and like Bitter Blossom's such a powerful card by itself, but being able to put a intangible virtue on it or something, just giving it a little buff for vigilance, getting some good value off that. Now we're seeing Kevin play a 4/5 and a 1/1, so like he's protecting himself against Liliana of the Veil. I'm not 100% sure what you would actually go with if Jim drops the Liliana of the Veil. What do you think, Jake?
I'd be inclined to sacrifice my Death Shadow. It's the smallest of the 2 threats, and Tassikina can always buy back the Death Shadow, provided he gets 1 more mana.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, Lily is dying if she hits the battlefield.
Yeah.
Taking out one of his Kevin's threats.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, it probably might not even be worth it, even if it was in his hand. But also, Death Shadow is very susceptible to Fatal Push, so it's probably like getting ready to like Surgical if he can, but Fatal Push being the thing that could actually turn this game around, even in this instance, because if he was able to end of turn Fatal Push and then untap, cast Liliana of the Veil, sacrificing your Tassigo, like that's two of his 8 threats just like gone, you know. With the without being able to get him back unless he has a Colligan's Command in hand. Now, we see the Team of Battle Rage still sitting in Kevin's hand. I'm wondering if he's going to want to punch that out sooner rather than later. Like, he needs to sort of be careful because although Jim doesn't have anything on the battlefield, it's very, very likely that he could be holding up for his own stubborn denial. Just sort of playing it as safe as he can. I mean, we're still only seeing a 1/1 from Dash Shadow, so he could possibly take his time, maybe sculpt his hand a little bit more with Thought Scours. We see Kevin showing his hand with another...
there was a Scalding Tarn. There was, Scalding Tarn. It looked like a Surgical Extraction and Team of Battle Rage. So he could be gearing up for just one big swing next turn.
With the protection from... I mean, every time that Jim sculpts his hand a little bit better, that Surgical is just a little bit more turned on. You know, like if Jim's looking for another Fatal Push, all it needs is Kevin to... be a little bit faster than him and blast off that Surgical before the Fatal Push comes down. He'll be able to protect his Dash Shadow, protect his Tasiga from anything else, and then set himself up for a Team of Battle Rage win. So if we can get a life total a little bit lower, we can actually see a huge swing coming out of Kevin. Now, I noticed that both of the lists, neither of the lists are playing Claim to Fame. Very, very spicy deck. We've gone through it before, but it's very, very good against in the Dash Shadow deck because it gets back a Dash Shadow and it also gives it haste, so you could sort of just spend a turn doing that. And if you're on a low life total and you're kind of digging for one answer, the Claim to Fame would be that answer, you know, being able to swing with a hasty 11-10 Death Shadow or something like that, you know.
I do play a Singleton Claim to Fame in my Death Shadow list. I really enjoy the card. Like it, if you Thought Scour it away, you're not too sad to see it hit the bin.
Yep.
And it also gets back a Snapcaster Mage, which then gives something flashback for one less than if you were to cast the Snapcaster from your hand.
Yeah, for sure.
It has been relevant for me. But yeah, just these guys obviously have just
testing other theories. Absolutely. Maybe they just didn't have room for it.
Yep.
I think we're having a little bit of a think. We might be flashbacking Fatal Push. Now, he does have that 1 mana up for if he had a Fatal Push. If Jim had a Fatal Push in his hand, Kev could Surgical it. It looks like he's just gone straight for the... Who's going for a Thoughtseize at this instance?
So in response, Kevin is going to Surgical...
Fatal Push.
Okay, that sounds fine.
I think he's just taking the chance. Jim's tapped out. But Jim is leading. This is very, very good play. A slightly unknown play from some people who don't use Surgical very much. But what happens is essentially Jim's going to Surgical his own Fatal Push, and then he's going to search his hand and library for any amount of Fatal Pushes. But because the library and hand are considered hidden areas, because they're considered hidden areas, then he's not going to have to find the extra Fatal Pushes. He's just basically allowed to say, oh, there's no Fatal Pushes in here, or fail to find, and he's able to do that. So probably a pretty decent play on Jim's part, and it definitely paid off, especially if he had one of those in his hand. Like if he had a Fatal Push in hand, then that would be it. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So the Fatal Push came out, which was great, but Kev just sort of showing off that Team of Battle Rage. Jim's life total being particularly low, it was not going to be enough for Jim to get out of that hole. Actually paying 2 life for that Surgical Extraction being very helpful for him, making his Death Shadow a little bigger. We're going to go to game 3 now.
Looked like Kevin was bringing in his second copy of Team of Battle Rage. Yeah, he won him the game just then, so bringing in your second copy seems fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we're seeing any changes from Jim's side, but I can definitely understand Kevin's reasoning. He saw that Team of Battle Rage worked. He sort of... Maybe he wants to test it a little bit more. Maybe he just wants an extra chance to draw it, but we can see it sort of helping... turn the corner in this what is a very, very mirrory mirror, like the most mirror style mirror you can see, where they're both just playing the same spells in the same sequence. It's just whoever has the better cards, and possibly has the better opportunities, will be able to pull out in front. Jim not bringing anything on his side. Possibly very happy with what he sided in. Keeping with those surgicals, we saw him side in a Liliana of the Veil as well. So hopefully we'll see that in game 3, and possibly just slowing down a little bit of his dead cards. Maybe Colligan's Command is just a little bit too expensive, and he possibly didn't bring it in. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out of it. Great. So shuffling up for game 3.
Yep.
The absolute clincher. Speaking of mirror matches, this is them going 1-1, and then we'll see who can take that last game out. Both sort of showing their professional attitude by not just tapping the top of the deck or cutting it very poorly. Both taking the time to properly shuffle their opponent's deck. We see a Liliana of the Veil in Kevin's hand now, something that he brought in. So I think he probably would be pretty happy with this hand. It has some lands and it has a Liliana. Like, I feel like Liliana can definitely like help turn that corner. See a Fatal Push and a Liliana in Jim's hand as well. So Death Shadow, Gomag Angler in Kevin's hand. So it seems that both hands have work very well, and we'll see what comes out of it. We see Jim leading off with a Bloodstained Maya, just leaving it untapped, possibly setting himself up for any sort of instant spells that he has. Kev leading off with the Serum Visions, taking the damage, doing all of his stuff in the main phase, where Jim doesn't have to with this one of Opt that he has. I didn't see whether or not it was in his hand, but definitely something to note. Now, the Serum Visions is still on the stack. And Jim's stubborn denying it. This is a very interesting play. The reason I kind of like it, it's definitely taking a risk. What he's trying to bet on, I think, is that if he maybe did the soul read on Kev and like thought that he might have not very probably a bad hand or not enough lands, Jim could just take him off the opportunity to refill his hand and try and get something a little bit better. We'll see if it pays off for Jim. We're going to follow up with the Thoughtseize. So this is like very good sequencing of plays.
So what are we looking at? We've got a Death Shadow, a Liliana of the Veil, a Tasiga, a Gomag Angler, and a Scalding Ton and a Water Grave. Yeah. So this was a very good read on Jim's half, countering that Serum Visions, because Kevin doesn't have anything to really lower his life total to slam that Death Shadow. And everything else is just way too very expensive. Yeah. There's no other cantrips. There's no Thought Scours, anything like that. Okay,
so possibly paying off for Jim. If he was counting on Kev not having the correct amount of lands, it kind of didn't work out as well, because we still see the crucial. I think you probably can survive on 3 lands very well with Death Shadow. So but he's not casting that Death Shadow anytime soon.
Yep.
He's not casting the Tasiga or the Gomag Angler anytime soon, because he's only got 1 fetch land to kind of power out his graveyard. And we're definitely not seeing a Death Shadow come down and die just so he can cast a Tasiga. So it might work out very well for him.
And Jim taking the Liliana of the Veil, which is fine. He's probably got plenty of creature removal, but Liliana is one of the things that these decks can't answer too well, along with other Planeswalkers, because not playing Dreadball without bashing into the Planeswalker, there's no clean way of removing it.
Yeah, and as we said, very threat light when it comes to amount of threats. So, I mean, if you're playing a Gideon and you make it indestructible until end of turn, or just use it to try and blank some of the attacks, then it's going to be very hard for you to deal with. So that's why you need those Thoughtseize effects, so you can take it out of their hand before they can use it. Now, leading up on that Thoughtseize, he did actually give Kevin the opportunity to play the Tasiga, so he does have 1 threat on the battlefield, but we'll see who sort of comes out better on this transaction. For the first time, I think I saw Jim fetching at end of turn and then leaving it tapped. So maybe just conserving his life total in the face of this Tasiga, making it very relevant.
So there is a third land in Jim's hand with a Liliana of the Veil. So yeah, he will be able to answer this Tasigur.
Very nice.
Yep.
Putting his life total down to 12 and then just going straight for that Liliana of the Veil, sacrificing the Tasigur, and then he's just going to start ticking up Lily every turn. It actually doesn't matter how dead both of their hands get because he has Liliana of the Veil, and eventually he can just split his lands in half, and then he's at an advantage, and then yeah, it's going to be very hard for Kev to deal with this resolved Liliana. We see in Kev's hand, we still see the Gurmag Angler, and I think I saw another Watery Grave, but the next few plays are going to be crucial for him. He has Liliana sitting on a very low life total now. He can, if he takes a couple of life, he could get a Death Shadow onto the battlefield, and then he could swing with it before Liliana gets a chance to be out of Death Shadow death range. So taking another 2 for this Steam Vents. If he plays a Death Shadow, it could be still in the game for Kev, but all Jim needs is a couple of turns for Kev not to play a threat, and he's just going to run away with this game just because there's one Liliana. But luckily we see the line.
This Death Shadow isn't long for this world, unfortunately. Jim is holding a Fatal Push in hand.
Oof.
Yep.
I mean, Kev, like Kev knew the line, right? I mean, but it relied on Jim not having the Fatal Push in hand, which is just not a whole lot you can do about that, you know?
Yep.
Sometimes you just have to take the best lines and just hope that your opponent doesn't have the thing in the hand. So I can only surmise that Jim will be playing at that Fatal Push as soon as he can. We're going to tick up first, and we're going to see what gets discarded.
A couple of lands
on both sides, and then possibly just punching out that Fatal Push before Kev gets a chance to attack. Okay, there's definitely like a good reasoning for not waiting for Kev to untap, because if Kev untaps, he gets an extra land.
Yep.
He gets an extra chance to pump his Death Shadow, which might turn on his Stubborn Denial. There's like definitely a lot of reasoning to go main phase Fatal Push. And then yeah, that was possibly like the thing that Kev was hoping for the least, was that Jim would have that Fatal Push, or possibly like a K command or something that would just stop him from being able to kill this Liliana before it gets out of hand.
We'll be seeing a Snapcaster into Thoughtseize.
Yeah, this is bad news for Kev. This is going to be very hard for Kev to get back on. Not only is Liliana making him discard every card that he draws every turn, forcing him to not sculpt his hand or hold cards back. Like, he has to play his cards every turn, otherwise Liliana is just going to get rid of it for him. And now he's like following up with this Thoughtseize, which he's just not going to be able to deal with.
And they ambush Viper from Kevin.
That's right.
Discarding the Gurmag Angler to Thoughtseize.
Yeah. So now we have at least he's got a Snapcaster on field, so that he can start bashing in.
Any form of removal to get rid of Jim's Snapcaster Mage, he'll be able to take care of the Liliana.
And he's got that 3 mana. It's not unlikely that he could play. He's opting to play a Death Shadow, which is fine, actually, like totally fine. But I mean, if he had the K command, he'd be able to kill the Snapcaster Mage, bring back a creature of his own, or possibly deal 2 damage. But then he would be just right for swinging into Liliana. It's still a live game though. We're still like Death Shadow being very aggressive at this point, but unfortunately Jim just has all of the cards and taking out with another Fatal Push. So now Jim has the 2 Snapcaster Mages. He's going to start beating face soon. Kev knows this. He's probably going to throw one under the bus. Yep. And then Jim's just going to start beating him with this 2-1. Just dealing that little bit of damage each time, making him discard every card he draws for that turn. Kev lamenting in the fact that he doesn't have the thing. Jim
showing off his Pro Tour pass.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just for the extra BMs, just having this absolute advantage coming out from Liliana, discarding every card that he doesn't need and swinging him with the Snapcaster Mage. It's going to be very hard for Kev to get out of this spot, especially now Jim's wearing his Pro Tour badge. Pro Tour lanyard.
Though Tasigur is not nothing from Kevin.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess probably, yeah. It's hard to decide whether or not we're going to fetch here.
Mm.
You could possibly fetch and just have the thing come in tapped. And sort of keep his Snapcaster Mages alive. Unfortunately, because due to the glare, we still don't see exactly what's happening in his graveyard, but there's definitely a lot of cards in there that are suitable targets for Snapcaster Mage, so we're not out of the woods yet on Jim's side, but it's going to be very hard for Kev to dig himself out of this hole. We see Snapcaster Mage, 2 Shadows, Tasiga, and probably the Gurmag Angler, so actually no targets for Snapcaster Mage, unfortunately. So we're just going to get rid of a bunch of lands, leave the Dash Shadow and the Tasiga and the Gurmag Angler in the bin, as well as a couple more cards. But
that is a bit of a red flag that Colligan's Command is still cruising around in the deck if you're opting to keep 2 or 3 different creatures around.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely like keeping that option alive for him by leaving the Dash Shadow in his graveyard. He's running out of time though. He's at 8 life. He's at 6 life now, and Jim's life total is not really going anywhere at this point. Like if he deploys his own Dash Shadow, it could just be lights out for Kevin. I mean, he only needs one more threat before it's game over. But I mean, still absolutely a live game. There's a lot of live draws coming out of Kevin's side. I mean, if he's able to get the K command, we still could see a couple of live draws.
Yeah. Either the Colligan's Command or the Lightning Bolt to take care of Liliana. Then he just needs to follow up with a single threat like a fatty, such as Gurmag Angler or Tasiga, his other Tasiga. Then Kevin could turn the corner easily.
Absolutely.
Notably, surgicling the Snapcaster Mage is
hyper aggressive maneuver, but I mean, it's probably going to work out for him. It means that his live draws are suddenly a little bit less live because like Jim's not really doing a lot besides the Snapcaster Mage and ticking up the Liliana of the Val. I mean, it is giving him some great advantage over his opponent, but I mean, Snapcaster Mage is still a very live draw. Oh dear, poor Kevin. I mean, there's no point. There's no point in like not playing out this land. It's just very unfortunate. He's going to put himself to 4 life. There's no reason for him to fetch and shock anymore. He's got oh dear. Sometimes no matter how good, we got these 2 behemoths of Canberra Magic coming up against each other, but not much can stop you just getting the bad draws. Seeing Jim sort of tie up this game with another Thought Scour, just sort of figuring out exactly what he wants to do, playing out all his cantrips that he possibly can, getting rid of any dead cards. This is the card that he needs. Ooh. Okay.
So it does stave off death for a little bit.
Yeah. It keeps him alive for one more turn. He's going to do this. Yeah, look. His life is good. Life is good. He's probably fine. We're going to tick up Lily. Like, there's still a lot of live draws coming out of Kevin's side. Hopefully this will be enough. I have a feeling it's not. It's the one of Island that he has in his deck, but poor Jim is just drawing. Poor Kevin for Jim is just drawing the being able to scry and being able to use that Thought Scour before. Like this could be it, unfortunately.
Yep.
All right, here
These
we
are
go.
2 threats Kevin cannot answer in the short amount of time he has.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim's going to just do whatever he can. We still don't know what's in Kev's hand at this point in time, but it could be another Fatal Push. Jim kind of needs that Stubborn Denial or something just to sort of protect his Death Shadow from anything happening, but we're going to see what comes out of here. This is the final blow. And it's a Team of Battle Rage, unfortunately.
Kevin deciding to take the gentleman's way out for a second time.
That's right. All right, we're packing it up here. So, so Jim ends up taking it out with 2 games to 1. Very close matches from the both of them. But yeah, that Liliana just giving that advantage that Kev just could not compete with.
That's it. Well, thanks for watching this video, guys. Like and subscribe for more, and stay tuned.